Assalamu alaikum, aspirants. How are you? I hope you are all in good health. So, we are just preparing ourselves for current affairs regarding the competitive exams of CSS and PMS. Our today's topic, our today's question regarding current affairs is why Pakistan is pushing out refugees. That what's the reason behind that the Pakistan is pushing out the Afghan refugees. So, let's start our today's topic. First of all, we have to write the introduction. So, Afghan refugees who fled their country to escape from decades of war and terrorism have become the unwriting pawns in a cruel and crude political tussle between Pakistan's government and extremists. So, and here, who we call the extremist? Taliban. As their once close relationship disintegrates after the mutual recrimination. On October 3, Pakistan's government announced that mass disposition of illegal immigrants, mostly Afghans, would start on November 1. So far, at least 3 lakh Afghanis have already been ejected, and more than a million others face the same fate as the explosion. Continue. The bilateral fight appears to center on Kabul's support for extremists who have weakened havoc and killed hundreds in Pakistan over the last 2 years. Or at least that is how Islamabad sees it, arguing that it is simply applying its own laws. The Taliban deny executive that they are behind the upstick of terrorism in Pakistan by affiliates they protect, train, arm, and direct. Man dispositions or man deportations are a sign that Pakistan is putting its house in order, said Pakistan's caretaker Minister of Interior Sarfraz Bhakti. Pakistan is the only country hosting 4 million refugees for the last 40 years and still hosting them. He said via text, whoever wanted to stay in our country must stay legally. Of the 3 lakh Afghans already ejected, none have faced only this problem upon returning, he hold foreign policy. As the Taliban are claiming that Afghanistan is now peaceful, he said, they should help their countrymen to settle themselves. We're not cruel state. He said, adding that Pakistanis are more important than the Afghanis. So that's why they are just said that we have to push out the Afghan refugees. The Taliban, who since returning to power in August 2021 have been responsible for UN documented arbitrary detentions and killings, as well as forcing the women and girls out of work and education, have called Pakistan's deportations inhuman and rushed. Taliban figures have said that billions of dollars of international aid they still receive are insufficient to deal with the country's prior economic and humanitarian crisis, let alone a mass influx of Palestinian refugees. So, the explosions come after the earlier efforts by Pakistan, such as trade restrictions, to exert pressure on Kabul to win the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan (TLP). The Pakistan Taliban, whose attacks on military and police present a severe security challenge to the Pakistani state, acting Prime Minister Anwarul Haq Kakad said earlier this month, is TTP attacks at the reason by 60% since the Taliban resigned control of Afghanistan, with 2026 7 people killed. So, the irony is that Pakistan bankrolled the Taliban throughout their 20 years insurgency following their ouster of the power during the US held invasion in 2001. As you know that the incident of 9/11 occurred in that 2001. So Taliban leaders found security and funding from Pakistan's military and intelligence services. When the Taliban retook control of Afghanistan in 2021, then Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan congratulated them and did groups such as Al Qaeda and Hamas. But rather than continuing as Islamabad proxy, the Taliban have reversed roles, providing safe haven for the terrorists and also jihadi groups, including the TTP. While it's still too early to draw any conclusion as policy shifts on in Islamabad, it appears that initial excitement about the Taliban's return to power has now turned into frustration, said Abdullah Khanzani, a former deputy minister of peace in the previous Afghani government. So, resultantly, these traditional Pakistani state allies of the Taliban have systematically reserving their leverage to be prepared for potentially worse scenarios. Since the Taliban's return, around 6 lakh Afghans made their way into Pakistan, swelling to the number of Afghan refugees in the country 60 and ultimated 3.7 million, with 1.32 million registered with the UN High Commission on Refugees. Many face distinctions or destitutions, enroll the hard work, or even send their children to local schools. The situation may be even worse after the deportations. Pakistan is reportedly confiscating that the refugees' money on the way out, leaving them in the precarious situation in a country already struggling to create jobs for its people or deal with its own humanitarian crisis. Border crossing between Pakistan and Afghanistan have been closed in recent works on May. Afghan refugees prompted the police round wings and began making their way back. Media have reported that some of the undocumented Afghan were born in Pakistan, their parents having fled in the uninterrupted conflict at home since the former Soviet Union invaded in 1979. Many of the bios were not registered. Meanwhile, some groups among the being expelled are especially valuable. Hundreds of Afghans could face retribution from the Taliban. They leave the country to escape. Journalists, women, civil and human rights activists, LGBTQ advocates, judges, police, former military and government personnel, and Sheikh Hazaras have all been targeted by the Taliban and may escape to Pakistan with or without affiliated the document. Some efforts have been made to help Afghan regarded on the vulnerable to Taliban access of the returned Qamar Yousafzai up to the Pakistan Afghanistan International Federation of Journalists at the National Person Club of Pakistan. In Islamabad, to verify the identities of hundreds of Afghan journalists, issues them with ID cards and help with housing and healthcare. He has also interceded for journalists detained by the police for a lack of papers, yet that might not be enough to protect the deportations. Amnesty International called for a halt to continue destruction, dispositions, and widespread harassment of Afghan refugees. If not, it said that it would be denying thousands of Afghanis, especially women and girls, access to safety, education, and livelihood. The UNHCR, International Organization for Migration, the UNS Immigration Agency, said to forced repatriations had the potential to result in severe human rights violations, including the separation of families and deportations of minors. Once back in Afghanistan, Returns, returners have found the going tough. Arising in the country have badly know without resources the resultant their lives, many facing the harsh Himalayas winter in camps. So these have a Taliban administrations ill-equipped to providing to them. Fariba Faizi 29 is from the southwestern Afghanistan, oily of Farah, where she was a journalist with a private her stations. Her mother Shirin was a prosecutor for the Farah Provincial Attorney General officer specializing in domestic violence cases. Once the Taliban returned to power, they were both out of their jobs since women are not permitted to work in the new Afghanistan. They also found the possibilities of detention, beating, rape, and killing. Along with her family of 10, Faizi, now 8 months pregnant with her second child, moved to Islamabad in April 2022, helping they had been safe enough. Once the government announced the deportation, landlords who have been renting to Afghan began to evict them. Faizi's landlord said he wanted to home back for himself. Her family is now living with friends of Yousafzai who also arranged the charitable sport to cover their living cost for 6 months, she said. With no work in either Pakistan or Afghanistan, Faizi said they focused a similar economic situation on either side of the border in Pakistan. However, the woman and family could not least look for work. She said their preferences would be the stay in Pakistan as it is the remain in hiding afraid of being detained by police and forced over the border once their visas expire. So till that our today's topic is has been completed. In our next video we will do the next topic relevant to the Pakistan or current affairs. Till that, take care. Allah Hafiz.